Let me tell you about heartache and the loss of God, wandering, wandering in hopeless night. Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, you're stone, immaculate. What do you think he knew? The perimeter, there are no stars. I think that's pretty interesting. And then he goes murdered, drugged to death, whatever. Um, Anyhow, looking into Candace Owens a little bit lately. Uh, she's quite a girl, that Candace. She's interesting because she went with Ben Shapiro. I've always distrusted him right away because of that smart of an Edomite is a dangerous thing. And the way he talked and the things he said, and he'd mix all this wonderful truth in, and he had all this logic and stuff, but then I knew the underline of him is Edom first, or what you guys would call Israel, I guess. You guys would say the Jews. Anyhow, Candace is blood Israelite. Hebrew. She doesn't know it, I don't think. She might. She hangs out with Kanye. Anyhow, so she's got this Rabbi Shmuley guy now. And Rabbi Shmuley, I don't know, I just kind of looked him up a little bit. He's all over Pierce Morgan's show. He's another Edomite, and he's attacking Candace any way that he can, just to try to stir up bad publicity or whatever. Who knows what he's going to do, how far they'll take it. Anyway, I look up his arguments, and probably half of the ones I saw, he's arguing with this Muslim guy about the Israel-Palestine war. And so you got these two non-Hebrew, non-Israelite dudes arguing, probably very intelligently, about the land of Israel. I'm sure they avoid the promises and any of the technical information about it, but you got them talking about it, and there's no Hebrew represented at the table, no bloodline, certainly not a Levite or anything, and they're just babbling on about what they think the land should. It's ridiculous. This world is ridiculous to live in. I haven't been doing videos because, well, I've been waking people up in other ways. I'm traveling around the freaking world doing all kinds of stuff, and had another awakening of baby steps, and just going back to a more mellow me, I guess. It's working better than I do on here. I've saved more people and had more progress in reality, I guess. But anyway, I figured I'd just talk about this because I find it's funny as hell. It's ridiculous, and it blows my mind that it's all lost to everybody. Nobody actually sees or very few people are seeing the truth. And then the couple that are, uh, they turn off their comments. What the fuck? That's like the heart of Facebook or YouTube or the awakening, right? Like that's how you actually interact with the people, and you have those little arguments. And see, even if it's a troll, this is what I love about it. I used to argue with trolls steady. I love trolls. I'd pick them up on Facebook. I'd go find them and add them to my friend groups. And then I'd go through their timeline and react to a bunch of things so that they would constantly be coming up on me, and then they'd be reacting to my stuff, and I could have arguments with them. And you never win against the troll, right? But I don't argue against the troll himself, and I'm arguing his arguments, I'm arguing his statements. And then the purpose of it is that if somebody else was to read the conversation, they would be able to discern, hopefully, who's saying the truth and who's not, and who's just using talking points or hate or uh, lashing out at education or whatever, like, oh, where'd you get your degree, or any of this shit, you know? And people will use as a defense when they're losing an argument, right? But you just ignore all that shit. And actually, I'll tell them this exact thing. When they start that shit, I always tell them, well, I'm not here to argue with you to change your mind. I don't want anybody else who reads your post to think you're right. So I'm just showing them how wrong you are, right? And it gets under their skin, sure, but I mean, it at least, uh, then I can go on with point to point evidence on whatever it is that we're arguing about. Like if it's age of the earth or whatever, I can start breaking down the science and showing them, okay, no, but there's a hole here, and there's a hole here, and there's a hole here. So actually, that's the three main sciences of your evidence for age of the earth, and you have nothing. And they all point to, when you actually look at the evidence and break it down, they point to the Bible's age, not to millions of years or whatever. So and then when you look at the scientists that are figuring this stuff out and what they've said that, um, you know, we see that our theory is dead or dying, but the only other alternative is to admit that there's a God, and we don't want that. So they blatantly admit it in certain papers, but they only have, like Satanists, have to tell you what it is that they're doing against you in order for it to work. They can't, um, they can't murder you. So a Satanist can't like say, here's an apple, and it be poisoned and then poison you to death. But they can say, here's a poisoned apple, why don't you eat it? Right? And then it's your choice to have killed yourself. They just provided the means. Um, and then they can somehow keep themselves in some kind of karmic balance in order to tap into the power that God left here on earth. That is that karmic balance, right? So, like, God doesn't interfere. He sealed the dome, so he doesn't really interfere. The angels come down, whatever, maybe, but there's a magic, for lack of a better word, left, his power that he left, and there's a way to access it, and there's multiple ways to access it, like witchcraft and stuff like this, and so it, in order to access it best, you can't be evil. You can't be like outright evil. You can be, excuse me, I'm gassy. You can be a trickster kind of thing, or whatever, provider, but you can't. So, like that maid thing in Canada, where the doctor can assist you in your suicide. Well, it's you that's killing yourself. The satanic doctor is just assisting you. But you made the choice. You asked him. Anyhow, um, I'm babbling because I want to give some type of evidence to a new viewer, maybe, that I do know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm just not going to sit here and babble it all out because I've done that a lot and it doesn't seem to go anywhere. I find planting small seeds and leaving them alone is the best way. So I'll just behave differently around people. They'll see that I fit right in, like say with the roofers, right? He fits right in. He's just like one of us. He's a roofer. And then they'll say, "Oh, you want this?" No, I don't. Do you want that? No, I don't. Do you want that? No, I don't. Um, and then they're like, "Well, okay, this guy's different, but he's likable or whatever, or fucking uh, outright lovable." um, so whatever, and then they'll ask questions. Plant a little seed, whatever the question is. You just answer it really small, and the smaller the answer, I find, like a mustard seed. It is true. The smaller the seed, the more it grows. Immediately, that curiosity comes out, and then they come right back, and they're like, "No, I need to know more. This, that, the other." You know, and then then you got them like a fish on the line, right? So now you can kind of um, just keep helping them to see truth and kind of just say, well, yeah, look into this or look into that, or and then eventually I'll just open right up and tell them a whole bunch of shit because they'll ask the right question, and then it's like, okay, well, here. Um, so anyway, poor Candace Owens. Pray for her. She is a blood Hebrew, and they're attacking her because she's waking up. She's got a voice, and she's going to wake up more Hebrews, and that's the worst thing for them because of the curse, right? If the Hebrews realize who they are, get under God, the world will have to be servant to them. But it will be servants to a just leadership, as opposed to if Israel isn't under God, then Edom, the world will be a slave to Edom. And then the other half of the blessing, which shows you who Israel is that the dew, or like the blessings of the earth, are going to yield themselves wherever Israel goes. And Edom will dwell in the dew of the earth by the sword, by war. So Edom, you can always pick him out because he's in the wealth of the world through war. Jacob, you can always pick him out because the world, wherever Israel is, the world's going to be the most profitable. So there's going to be the most natural resources. And Jacob is actually the nation builder. So he's going to build the nation. Like it's going to thrive as a nation if he's part of it, kind of thing. That's why Egypt wanted to keep him so much. So Egypt was scared of Israel because they seen them go to war. Egypt was losing a war, and then they called on Israel. This was before slavery. They were like, "Come and help us," and they were fighting Israel's cousins. They were fighting Edom, and so they didn't want Israel to be involved because they thought, family, they could turn on us, right? Anyways, then they're getting their ass kicked by Edom, and they said, "Come on, Jacob, help us, Israel." And 100 Israelites came out and pushed back 10,000 or whatever it was. It pushed back the whole army. And then the Egyptians, when seeing these fucking Bo Jackson, Mike Tyson motherfuckers all fighting under God as one army, going out there and just slashing guys down, they shit themselves and went and hid. And so then, Jacob was like, "What the fuck, man? You called me to get your back, and then you're going to run?" So then they started fucking up Egyptians on their way home after they won the war. Anyway, so then Egypt got together and they're like, "What do we do? We don't want them to leave because they bring the blessing of God, but we don't want them to grow too much because they'll overtake us. And if they ever wanted to go to war with us, they'd kill us." So they came up with the plan of slavery to try to slow down their population numbers and all this other stuff. And then obviously there was all kinds of stuff going on where Egyptians were sending these guys to work and then sleeping with their wives and screwing with the bloodlines and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, there was a lot went on after that, but that's what started it all. And it's because of that blessing. So look at the world. Where's that blessing today? It's here in America. So what people are here in America? When we got here, that blessing was already here. So there's your lost 10 tribes. We found the walking trail. I explained to you before about where the water was and wasn't and all that, and how it displaced, and the Grand Canyon, and how there's all kinds of them all over the world. And those lakes drained, exposing America, letting Christopher Columbus see water comes up, something displaced it, let's go find what it was. That's what they actually sailed for. They didn't sail to prove the world was round. That's bullshit. And then so you got there's your lost 10 tribes, and then there was the other 2 tribes forced down in through Africa, and I don't know how they got switched. It's written down that one of these famous guys, I can't remember, it was a historian of some sort, but he said that the Israelites left black and came back white. But I don't know where the separation of how they separated the 2 tribes that went into the slave trade, like, and then they separated the families and changed their names and erased their history. I get that. But how did they convince the world that they are them? It was crazy. I don't think they did it until Hitler. I think that was the catalyst. The Second World War was the catalyst of what they got rid of enough of even of their own people who knew the real history, so that they could rewrite it and write themselves as being those other 2 tribes. And then they had already erased who those tribes were. So all 12 tribes must have been lost at some time in order for this transition kind of thing to happen or something. I just, And I guess they'd amalgamated enough with the tribes because it was in the Maccabees' time that the Edomites were converted to Jews. So that would have been enough time for them to just be known as Jews, I guess. Anyway, that's why they're at constant war. That's why they need that constant war, because it's only through the sword that he can stay in power. And and that's why the constant defense of everything. They don't really want you to look. They don't want anybody to know anything, not even their own people. So, like, average Jewish person at the synagogue has no fucking idea about all this shit I'm telling you. You know, probably most rabbis don't know, never pieced it together enough to figure this shit out. They don't even really study the books anymore. They get these other books and they've changed things up, and because they when the New Testament came and the Levites were lost, and the temple was destroyed, they couldn't sacrifice anymore. So they had to come up with this whole different religion that isn't really Judaism because of Christianity, because Judaism became Christianity. But these guys were like, no, we're staying Jews. And it's like, well, the temple's gone, the buildings are gone, the Levites are gone. How can you stay Jews? What are you talking about? That's impossible. But they did it anyway, right? And made up this new religion. They just altered everything. And so now it's all through prayer and shit like that. Which brings it a little closer to Christianity. But they don't want Jesus. That's the big thing, right? So they got this twisted, weird religion. Anyhow, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you think that I'm onto something here. I think I am. I think it's ridiculous that the churches and the main church that talks about this stuff doesn't have their comments on. So you can't rebut anything, and you can't get any dialect happening in the, which kind of sucks. But I kind of understand too, because they don't want that troll and the toxicity. But that's our world that we live in, and so it's part of it. If you want to wake people up, you got to deal with those trolls and stuff. Um, I think. Anyway, have a great day, guys. God bless you.